Well, I'm really looking forward to today. For one, it's gonna be a nice day. I have a new bait I get to field test. We kind of got some of the finished samples here. It's been a long time coming. I will tell you, it's a glide bait. But we're out here on the Great Lakes, and one thing I like to do out here is do a lot of exploring. It's such big water, there's always something to learn. And so to me, I'm just gonna go out there and have fun today, not only looking around, exploring, but using this new bait that I've been excited about. And so why don't you join me today as I go out and show you the next bite.
Just looking for the next bite, next bite, next bite, next bite. Just looking for the next bite.
Glide baits quickly became a staple in many walleye anglers' boats, especially in the fall time frame. Because of the weight of a solid lead glide bait, there weren't many options to be versatile when it comes to depths and sizes. As the fish begin to move shallower in the fall, it becomes difficult to continue to use glide baits. But with a glide bait design similar to a crankbait, you can follow them right into the shallower water.
Right now it's the end of summer. You know, our water temperatures are still close to 70. It's just one of these long, drug out warm summers, but it seems like the fish are starting to show a little bit of their fall patterns. A lot of times in the summer when the water is the warmest, these fish are way offshore, out in the middle, that are on isolated small pieces of structure, generally out a little bit deeper and further offshore. But as that fall progresses, it seems like the fish will start pulling in to those larger shoals and reefs and fish a lot tighter together. You know, a lot of times you're gonna notice that the fish congregate out just like in the spring. They do as well in the fall, but it seems like they gravitate towards that larger structure. You know, maybe it's a finger that runs out the deepest, but it's just one of those things where it seems like as that water starts cooling, they start pulling back into where those larger complexes are, more than likely what holds a lot more heat at the end of the day. Barely hooked. Let's see, I don't know if I can flip that in or not. Little guy here. Nice little 3-pack down there. Got the players here. Oh, there you go. Little fun size or nice eating size walleye there. That was pretty cool. Those ones, there's a 3-pack of them, and I kind of caught them when they got real close to the boat. Dropped in the middle of them, took one pop with the finisher, and boom, this one ate it right away. But you see that a lot where you have multiple fish. It's obviously, you know, no different. It's competition, and if you could put your bait in the middle of a 3, 4, 5-pack or even more, I mean, there's really good chances that you're gonna get a bite. But a lot of times they are the smaller ones when they're grouped up. I'll get this one back. See ya.
The next bite is brought to you by Mercury Marine, Go Boldly, Schaefer's Specialized Lubricant, Putting Equipment First, Nitro Boats, Performance Fishing Boats, Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's. Your adventure starts here. Berkeley, your fish, our science. And Power Pole, Total Boat Control.
Next bite.
Closed captioning for the next bite is provided by Whitewater, built to brave the waves. The combination of a plastic body glide bait and forward-facing sonar is a huge advantage, especially when problems with a classic lead glide bait have been addressed and removed from your day of fishing. Being able to get every fish in the boat makes a huge difference, particularly during a tournament.
The bait that I'm really excited about to finally come out, and the one that I've been using today, is the Berkeley Finisher. Now this bait is in the glide bait realm of baits, But the first thing you're gonna notice is this bait has no fin, and that's one thing that I'm really happy about, because at the end of the day, you don't have to worry about the durability of this finisher because you're not having to worry about the breakage of those fins like other glide baits. The next best thing is we have 2 treble hooks on here, and that's always been a big thing to me with glide baits is your hooking percentage to landing ratio is never that great when you come to using other glide baits. Now with this finisher, those 2 treble hooks are just like a crankbait. They just have a lot better hooking percentage and landing it in the boat at the end of the day. Now this finisher comes in 3 sizes. This is the number 9 here. It comes in 3/4 ounce size for the number 9, and it has 2 other sizes as well in the finisher family. You have a number 7, which is a 1/2 ounce, and then you have a baby number 5 size here, which is 3/8 ounce. So you have a whole family of baits here in the finisher, but the thing I love the most about this is it has that same darting and fleeing action just like other glide baits that really triggers those summertime fish. And so to me, this is a whole refined bait because you don't have the fin anymore, and you have 2 treble hooks on here, just increasing the odds of your hooking percentage and landing ratio. Might be. Just barely getting it. Yeah. Oh. Just barely had that one on the nose. Where are the pliers here? There, right on the tip of the nose. There was a school of them down there with this one. I mean, it seemed like I threw in the 10 fish on this one and the whole school just went down, and second rip. This one bit. It's a nice one here. Let's get this girl back. See ya.
Total Control, presented by Power Pole. 20 years of trust, evolved from Total Boat Control.
Yes, folks, even with forward-facing sonar technology, you can still catch walleyes on crankbaits. And I just want to take you through the different options that Berkley has to offer. Some of them have been around for a while, and I think everyone knows about the original Berkley crankbait. Came out a lot of years ago, the flicker shad. What I will say is I still think the number 6 is one of the most underutilized in this entire category. It's neutrally buoyant, so it's suspending, so it actually will dive deeper than any of the other ones on a cast. I'm also a huge fan of the jointed flicker shads. The jointed ones have been really good for us in river situations, in dark water, something where you need a little bit more disturbance. So great bait there. Flicker minnows, very, very popular open water bait, available in a lot of different sizes. The size 5 is a great bait. This is an 11, so this would be like the size bait that you'd want to troll in open water, maybe on Lake Erie. The regular hit stick right here, couple different size options, fantastic bait when the water's cold, tons of roll in a stick bait right here, also really good on 3-ways. And then this is the new baby right here, the deep hit stick from Berkley. 3 different size options. Fantastic option, very erratic, very loud bait. And then when I get into maybe one of my favorites, the Money Badger. A lot of different size options, good for trolling. The bigger sizes have weight transfer systems for casting. So when you look at it, different profiles, all the baits do a little bit something different. Trust me, they all still catch a lot of walleyes. So don't give up your trolling. Berkley has a lot of different great baits. They're gonna put a lot of walleyes in your live well.
When it comes to using forward-facing sonar, there's a lot of things you can use it for. But one thing I don't like to use forward-facing sonar for, and one thing that really inhibits, to me, cadence or fish catching, is keeping your eyes on it too long after you made the cast. And what I mean by that is once I make my cast to the fish, once I watch my bait come down where I know it's the right distance, it's gonna land on top of them, almost always before that bait even hits the bottom, I quit looking at my screen and I focus on my line and obviously my bait, because the cadence is the most important thing, and it's so hard to do when you're trying to just watch on your graph, because on forward-facing sonar, especially if you have any kind of wind, it's hard to keep your bait in there. So to me, forward-facing sonar is really addictive, but you've got to know when to take your eyes off of it, because a lot of times it can be the difference in keeping your bait moving or letting it sit on bottom too long where they might move on. There we go. Not a bad fish there. Almost every fish is right there on the front of the mouth. There we go. Not the fattest one, but definitely a fun one. When it comes to catching these casting, you know, especially when you know you're casting towards fish, you watch them react and go down, and it's just that anticipation of when's he gonna bite, when's he gonna bite, when's he gonna bite, you know he's on it. You know, it's really cool. Unlike, you know, it's totally different than just, you know, casting, just almost waiting for a bite your whole cast. You know, with that active target, it's almost, you know, when that anticipation, when that bite percentage is really high. When it comes to using any bait for that matter that you're casting out, letting it fall, if it's a lipless bait, if it's a glide bait of some sort, in this particular case, the finisher, I almost always want to try to maintain my bait, you know, basically my line where I can feel what happens down there. A lot of times with forward-facing sonar, when I make my cast, I'll watch it go down, you know, basically almost all the way to the bottom, you know, if the weather is allowing, where it's calm enough. I'll watch it go almost all the way to the bottom. As it reaches, you know, the last couple feet, I'll look back up, I'll watch my line. Boom, my line just went slack from hitting bottom here, and that's what I'm gonna basically imply action to it. But I'm just gonna keep my line like semi-slack and kind of lower my rod tip down to it. I'm not trying to slow the fall rate at all. I'm just trying to maintain some feel yet of that bait. So if anything happens, if it's a bite, I'm gonna feel it. If it hits bottom, I'm gonna see it immediately. The last thing I want to do is just drop my rod tip and create a lot of bow in there, because all that is a lot of give where it's not going to return, you know, the feeling of the bottom, the sudden stop, or a bite as well as much if you have a big bow in your line. But I'm not trying to slow the fall rate, because with glide baits, even lipless baits, a lot of times that fall rate, that speed is what's the trigger. They try to get it before it hits the bottom. There he is. Oh yeah, this one's a walleye. Oh, I got him. Yeah, man. Man, I was getting so frustrated. I kept seeing, I mean, I've been casting that fish for like 20 minutes. It's pulled up to this piece of structure here, and there's been a lot of them, but I've been keeping my same cadence where, you know, I'm letting the bait almost fall to bottom almost every time, and it just wasn't working. They were chasing it, and they just weren't hitting it. And so finally, had this pack of fish, there was 3 of them. I just threw it, and I made sure I kept the bait like 2 feet off the bottom and just kept really short stroking it back and forth, with never allowing the bait to actually fall to the bottom. And this one just cracked it when it was just basically gliding that bait suspended through the water. And just one of those things where obviously active target really allows you to know what's happening down there. And I was getting so frustrated I even changed colors. But at the end of the day, it seemed like I got a bite the first time that I did that, where I just never let the bait return the bottom and just kept it up high. There's another nice fun size fish right here, but we'll get her back.
The next bite is brought to you by Mercury Marine. Go boldly. Schaefer's Specialized Lubricant. Putting equipment first. Nitro Boats. Performance Fishing Boats. Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's. Your adventure starts here. Berkley. Your fish, our science. Lowrance. The ultimate fishing system. And Power Pole. Total boat control. Hot topics, leading information and tackling techniques to make you a better angler. Presented by Mercury.
It seems like week after week when I'm describing a rod for a technique that I like to cast jigs with, or cast blade baits or shiver minnows or whatever I'm trying to cast, it depends on the bait. But I'm picking the same rod. This is a Johnny Morris Platinum Series rod. You could use any brand that you like, I guess. That wouldn't be a problem, but you want to pick one that's a medium to a fast action. So medium light. This one is called medium, but it's a fast action, which gives you a flexible tip. I like the fact that you can dial in on the butt end of the rod, the pound test of the line, so you always know what line you have on there. You couple that with a smaller reel, a size 15 or 20 size reel, for sure. Not anything really much bigger than that. And then I like to use 10-pound fire line for this situation. And depending on how much debris we have on the bottom, in this case we have a fair amount of wood, I've gone with a 15-pound fluorocarbon. You can get by with as light as 10-pound test. So it's a nice setup. Again, I use it for a lot of different presentations other than real light jigs, and it's just an overall fantastic rod for what we're trying to do today.
There are a lot of different ways to set up your active target, but the most popular has been on the trolling motor because you have the use of both of your hands to fish. This allows you to concentrate on fishing instead of boat control and moving your transducer at the same time.
When it comes to using active target, what I like to do for my trolling motor is a lot of times I have it pretty fast. I'll have it half to 3/4 throttle or so, kind of depending on conditions. Relatively slick calm today, it's really easy. I mean, I can have this bow mount at a half throttle or so. That'll get me going 1.5 miles an hour. But what I can do then is just basically move my boat along, but when I start panning left and right, I almost always pull my foot off the constant button. And that way my boat continues to track straight, and then I just turn the head left and right where it's not engaged with the prop, where it's pulling the boat left, it's pulling the boat right. And also you're getting a lot of shaft flex in the trolling motor, which is distorting your picture as well. So if I just keep my trolling motor pointed straight when I have my foot on the gas, and just turn right and left to scan and pan around without it, it just creates a lot more stable platform and a lot more stable picture. And it just allows you to, once you lock on a fish, you can follow it a lot easier before you start having to worry about if the boat's spinning on you. So that's just one of the things that I like to do when I'm using active target, is just keep my foot on constant when it's going straight. Obviously, once I make my cast, to me, when I make a cast at a fish, that's like my marker buoy, because then I can allow myself to basically pull my boat towards wherever I just made the cast, my line being the marker, and at the end of the day, it just helps me pinpoint and realign back on those fish. I think this is the right kind. Maybe. Come on. It's gotta be. Come on. I don't know, it's certain. I'll make you wonder now. Oh, I can get the net here. I didn't think that was the right flavor there. But it was. Oh. I didn't think that was the right one. Just barely hooked. kind of corner of a beak. But that's a healthy one there. It's a nice fish right there. I mean, I thought it was, you know, in my mind I wanted to think it was a walleye, but it had caught so many sheep and I was seeing a lot of sheephead. But I just threw into a couple and there was a few that were a little bit longer and I'm like, those gotta be walleyes, and one bit and I'm like, it fought me so long, I'm like, this is not gonna be a walleye, and sure enough, it's a dandy. But that's just one of those cool things with forward-facing sonar. Is I was trying to pick apart a school, and you know, majority of them were sheephead, but there was two that we had seen that were just a little bit different shaped, and you know, here was one of them, I guess. A nice walleye. Let's get her back. Oh. Later. To fish and then make a cast, and obviously test 1, 2. Can you hear me?
Yep.
All good. You ready? Open, take 1, Jake. Well, I'm really looking forward to today. For one, let this car go by. Open, take 2, Jake. It's a nice fish right there. I mean, I thought it was, you know, in my mind I wanted to think it was a walleye, but it had caught so many sheep and I was seeing a lot of sheephead. But I just threw into a couple and there was a few that were a little bit longer, and I'm like, those gotta be walleyes, and one bit, and I'm like, it fought me so long, I'm like, this is not gonna be a walleye. And man, I was getting so frustrated. I kept seeing, I mean, I've been casting that fish for like 20 minutes. Pulled up to this piece of structure here, and there's been a lot of them, but I've been keeping my same cadence where, you know, I'm letting the bait almost fall to the bottom almost every time, and it just wasn't working. They were chasing it and they just weren't hitting it. And so finally had this